أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونستنصره، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له، الها واحدا احدا صمدا، لم يتخذ صاحبه ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له كفوا احد. واشهد ان نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله، وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. يقول جل جلاله في محكم كتابه، يصف لنا حال سيدنا نوح إذ ركب الفلك ومن معه. يقول سبحانه: وهي تجري بهم في موج كالجبال، ونادى نوح ابنه وكان في معزل، يا بني اركب معنا. وفي قراءات أخرى اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين. قال: سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء. قال: لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم، وحال بينهما الموج فكان من المغرقين. As I go through Surah Hud and I talk about reform, and I go through the stories of each of the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about within this surah, pointing out the challenges that they had to go up against in order to actually achieve some form of reform in their lives and in the existence of their communities. I talked about the first obstacle that Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam had to stand up against, which is superiorism or racism or bigotry. And today I talk about the second challenge that he had to face. And it's summarized, subhanAllah, in his story in one word. It gives you this image. I want you to imagine Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. This visual image is extremely important. To understand the story, you have to imagine this for a second, or else you will emotionally not understand the severity of this problem. It may not seem severe and difficult at this moment, but a moment similar to the one that Sayyidina Nuh had to go through will be coming down the road if we don't pay attention to it. Imagine him in a ship of some sort. A flood is occurring, and everything is being destroyed by the water. Nothing is being spared. Trees and homes, mountains, everything is being taken, washed away. And it's only those who are in this ship that have some chance of survival. In the midst of this fear and this terror, in the uncertainty of the future, Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam is a father and a husband. He's a relative, he's a brother, he's a community leader, he's a part of a social group. Being in that situation, you look around and you hope that all your loved ones are with you and they're safe. He has his children, but one of them isn't there. And as he's going through the motions of what is happening around him, actually able to see his son. What are the odds? Amongst all the people that are living within the area that he is, he actually sees his son. And his son is swimming. And that last attempt from a father to save his son, to save his offspring, the thing that he loves most in this world, this last attempt, he calls upon him, knowingly, alayhi salam, that it's not going to make a difference. He knew, Nuh alayhi salam, he knew that his son wasn't going to get on board, by the way. وَأُوحِيَ إِلَى نُوحٍ أَنَّهُ لَن يُؤْمِنَ مِنْ قَوْمِكَ إِلَّا مَنْ قَدْ آمَنَ. He was told prior to this, no one is going to accept anymore. This is it. The people that you have, Nuh, these are the people who are going to be with you. No one's accepting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a glimpse of the future. It's it. This is it. So he knew it was over, but he can't help it. He's a father. I can't blame him. I don't think you can either. And he calls upon his son. Oh, my son, come to me. Get on this ship with me. Join me. Join me. Don't do this. Don't be on the wrong side of all of this. Save yourself. Allow me. Don't put me through the pain of seeing you pass away in a state that I can't be happy about. قال سآوي إلى جبل. Said, I'll find a mountain. Don't worry. I'll be fine. I want to be with you. I'll find a mountain. So he calls upon him, tells him, my son, there's nothing that will save you today besides joining me. Just join this. وَحَالَ بَيْنَهُمَا الْمَوْجِ. Waves came between him and his son. That was the end of it. The pain that Sayyidina Nuh had to go through when that occurred cannot be in vain. Cannot be in vain. What I mean by that is that we have to learn from what happened. We have to learn from this lesson. It's important for us as a community, as a Muslim society. We have to learn from the pain that Sayyidina Nuh had to go through at that moment as he watched his son drown, go astray, leave the group. And it's all summarized, in my opinion, in one word within the middle of that verse. When he says, وَكَانَ فِي مَعْزِلٍ. The word ma'zil means isolation or to be set aside. Some translation will say neglected. I don't think that's appropriate for Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam, but the concept is clear, inshallah. The concept of being isolated. If you isolate the next generation, this is what happens. I'm going to share with you today 7 points. I may not give a lot of ayat and ahadith to support them. There's a lot to support them, but if I do that, we'll speak here until Asr. So I'll just tell you the 7 points. Listen to them and see what you think about them. We all have the same by the way. We all carry the exact same problem. The same worry in the heart of every person sitting here. Whether you're a father, you're worried for your children, you're a newlywed who wants to have children but is worried, or you're a son and you have siblings, you have brothers and sisters, everyone has the same worry. Let's go through a couple of points. The first point is a disclaimer. Do not judge parents. Do not judge other parents. You see these gray hairs came from problems I have to listen to between parents and their children. Do not judge other parents when you see their children not doing well. I beg you, please do not make someone feel self-conscious if one of their children isn't doing the right thing, made a horrible mistake. Please do not judge them. You don't know the reality of what happened. You don't know how much effort they put in. Because if you judge them, then I ask you this. Can you judge Nuh alayhi salam? Can you? Are you able to judge Nuh and say he didn't do the right job with his son? You cannot. This person that has a problem with their child is not better than Nuh alayhi salam. Do not judge them. It's very simple. This story in Surah Hud is important so that we remind ourselves. Do not judge other parents. The problems that people go through are real. Some of them are very complex. Some of them, all of us could have happened. It could have happened to any of us. This is the point I'm trying to make. That many of the problems that people go through could have happened to any of us. It's our job, instead of judging other parents, to figure out how we don't allow this to happen again. How we protect the next generation, the next person, and help that person who's gone astray as much as possible. Please do not judge them. That's my number one point. That being said, the second point, as a parent, as a brother, as an older brother, as an older sister, as a mother, as an aunt, as a grandparent, you are responsible for the well-being of your children. Not just the financial part. Not just making sure there's enough money and enough food on the table. You're responsible for their well-being mentally, physically, socially, and religiously. You're responsible for their well-being. That is your number one priority. That is what you're going to be asked and drilled about Yawm al-Qiyamah. There are many other responsibilities that exist in the world that you may get one question on the exam. Yawm al-Qiyamah, you may not, depending on what type of life you led, depending on the reality of where you were. But you will 100% be drilled about your family, about the people who are within your vicinity, the ones that you could actually influence and help and support and aid and mentor and guide and lead and be with. You're responsible as a parent. It starts at home. This is where it begins. You're responsible for that. We already said don't judge other parents. If you see someone not doing well, don't judge their parent. They didn't do their job. That's not our place to say that. We have no right to say that. But that being said, as we walk away from judging others, we have to be reminded this is our responsibility as parents. The well-being of our children on every level. It's not just the financial. I grew up with the mentality of the financial well-being because we all come from financially poor backgrounds. Most of us do, at least I did. Where my father and my grandfather took pride in the fact that there was food on the table and there were clothes on my back. There's a ceiling above me and there was heat in the room during the winter. And Jazakumullah khair for that. Today, where we are in this world, it's not enough. It's important, but it's definitely not enough. We're responsible for the well-being on every level. Making sure that they're healthy physically, making sure they're healthy mentally, making sure that they're healthy socially, making sure they're healthy academically, making sure that they're healthy religiously. It starts at home. Third point. Institutions, Islamic institutions, are responsible for providing knowledge, mentorship, and a safe space. These are the three things that have to be provided at masajid. This is what you have to hold masajid accountable to. All masajid, any Muslim institution, you hold them accountable for these three things, 100%. They can maybe fail on other fronts. They cannot fail on these three. They have to provide knowledge. They have to provide mentorship. And they have to provide a safe space for the youth and the next generation to come and express themselves so they can speak and they can learn and they can listen and they can interact and they can make mistakes. You make mistakes here. You don't make mistakes outside. You make mistakes outside is dangerous. It's a slippery slope. You'll never come back from it. You make a mistake in a masjid is fine. Safe. You're surrounded by people who love you, who support you, who want the best for you, who will not judge you. Institutions are responsible for these three things. As community members, you need to remind institutions to do that. Remind people like myself who are a part of these institutions. By the way, everyone has to be a part of these institutions. None of us have been appointed by God to run these things. Everyone should be a part of it. But those who are actually in a position to make decisions have to be reminded. Knowledge, mentorship, and safe space. All three are responsibilities of institutions. Fourth point. Providing narratives. And this is a separate point that I want to clarify on its own. Providing proper narratives, Islamic narratives, are the responsibilities of institutions, and it's the responsibility of parents to listen and learn these narratives so they can answer their children properly. The concept of ma'zil, when they're isolated, one of the reasons that a child would be isolated, the Quran is telling us, his son was isolated. It wasn't Nuh's fault, he did everything he could, but that was what happened, and that's what led for him to be on his own and to drown, not be with his father. They get isolated when they ask you as a parent a question, and you are answering the answer you were given 50 years ago. That answer could have been fine back when you were young. It probably isn't fine anymore. Probably the logic that your son or daughter is following just doesn't fit with the answer that you're offering. So if you don't have a clear narrative, if you don't know how to address very difficult subjects, controversial issues that they face every day, don't answer. It's the Islamic institution's responsibility to provide narratives. This is aside from providing knowledge and mentorship. That's specific for youth. We're here supposed to provide you with a narrative, a way of understanding the world, a way of explaining what is actually occurring around us. So that when you're faced with a problem that you're not sure what to say about it, because you never faced it growing up, or this problem wasn't widespread when you were younger, then it's our job to provide the narrative, and it's the parents' job to learn that narrative so that they can explain it to their children properly. And if you don't know, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Do not offer answers. The majority, the whopping majority of shabab that I've dealt with that have left the deen because of bad answers that I could no longer change for them. The vast majority, I'm talking over 90% of everyone I've watched, walked away because they had certain questions and they were given certain answers. And now they are sure that this is the answer of Islam. And no matter how much I try to explain, Ya Habibi, this is not the answer. That is incorrect. Who told you that? Had a good intention, but they didn't know what they were talking about. That's actually very inaccurate. Let me tell you what Allah actually... It's too late. They're already gone. وَحَالَ بَيْنَهُمَا الْمَوْجِ. It's too late. They won't listen anymore. The waves have come between us and they can't hear me. Majority of it comes from bad answers. Doesn't mean that you're doing it on purpose. No, you're doing it actually with good intention. This is what you were told. You're not to be held accountable for this. But I'm telling you, narratives change throughout history, throughout time. Narratives change. What worked at one point may not work today, and that's fine. The hukum stays the same, by the way, for most things. But the reasoning behind it, the way we approach it, will change based on where you're living and when you're living. I'll quickly translate that. إخواني وأخواتي ألم سيدنا نوح يجب ألا يذهب هباء يجب ألا يذهب سدى إذ حال الموج بينه وبين ابنه. فكانت هذه القصة معلما لنا كمسلمين لنتعلم أن نحافظ على الجيل القادم، على الجيل الصاعد، أنهم إذا عزلوا، وكان في معزل، هذه هي الآية، أنهم إذا عزلوا عن المجتمع وعزلوا عن من حولهم وعزلوا عن دينهم سيضيعون. وبين أيديكم أضع 7 نقاط للتفكر فيها لنحافظ على جيلنا القادم قبل أن يفوتنا الأوان. يا إخواني، قبل أن يفوت الأوان ونمضي إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى ولا يبقى خلفنا من يقوم هذا المقام ومن يسد هذه الثغرة. أولا، لا تحكم على الآباء. إذا رأيت ابنا أو ابنة ضائعة لا تحكم على ذويهم. لا تقل شيئا في قلبك، لا تقل ضيعوا، لم يركزوا، كانوا تائهين، لا تقل شيئا. الذي يشمت في أخيه يعني يأبى الله إلا أن يضع في بيته ما شمت فيه. انتبه، إذا شمت بأخوك إلا يقع في بيتك، فانتبه، ما تحكم على الناس، واخشى على نفسك. وإذا كان الله سبحانه وتعالى بمحض كرمه قد رزقك أبناء وبنات طائعين صالحين فاقض أوقاتك وأنت تحمد الله وتستغفره، لأن هذه نعمة والله ما يقربها نعمة. إذا حكمت على إنسان بسبب ضياع أولاده فقد حكمت على نوح عليه السلام، وهذا لا ينبغي. النقطة الثانية، أنت مسؤول عن عافية أولادك، عافيتهم الاقتصادية. نعم، هذا اتفقنا عليه منذ الصغر، منذ قرون، لكن أنت مسؤول عن عافيتهم البدنية والنفسية والعقلية والدينية والاجتماعية أيضا. هذه مسؤوليتك كأب وكأم، مسؤوليتك في البيت. هذه الأمور تبدأ من البيت. أنت مسؤول عن، ستسأل عن هذا يوم القيامة، ولعل هذا السؤال يكون من أول ما تسأل عنه، ويطول السؤال وتطول الأسئلة وتكثر، لأنك راع ومسؤول عن رعيتك. المؤسسات الإسلامية مسؤولة عن تقديم العلم والرعاية الإرشادية والمناطق الآمنة والمساحات الآمنة. المساجد مسؤولة عن تقديم العلم وتقديم الرعاية الإرشادية وعن تقديم المساحات الآمنة ليعبر الجيل عن نفسه، ليسأل، ليخطئ، يتعامل مع الناس. الخطأ هنا يا أخواني مأمون مغفور، الخطأ في الخارج قد لا يكون كذلك. تأمين الخطاب الإسلامي الصحيح هو مسؤولية المؤسسات الإسلامية. الاستماع لهذا الخطاب مسؤولية الآباء ليؤمنوا لأولادهم الأجوبة الصحيحة. أكثر ما يضل الأبناء في هذه البلاد أجوبة سيئة قدمها لهم ذووهم، ليس عن قصد، ليس عن سوء نية، وإنما عن عدم معرفة. أمور تغيرت، الأحوال تغيرت. الجواب الذي كان يكفيك منذ 20 أو 30 أو 40 عاما لا يكفي للناس اليوم. تحتاج إلى أن تجدد، تعمل تحديث، كما تحدث تليفونك وكمبيوترك تحدث أجوبتك حتى تجيبهم جوابا شافيا، وإذا لم يكن عندك فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون. The fifth point. I'll try to be quick inshallah. Identity begins at home. Building the identity, it begins at home. This is an issue that Muslim communities have been differing about for many, many years. Where do we get Islamic identity? It starts at home. Islamic institutions provide the togetherness, the sense of belonging, the unity. But the actual concept of identity, the actual Islamic identity, the cultural identity, comes from home. This is best done through social activities. As a parent, it's not just enough to teach them the deen. You have to teach them their culture, their heritage, their legacy. Where do you come from? What part of the world? What history do you have? What history exists in your family? This is something to be celebrated. We don't shy away from this. This is not being racist. This is not being, this is not segregating groups or secluding. This is what you need to do. Someone who doesn't know who they are, where they come from, is not going to be able to walk this earth with confidence. Making sure that they have a strong identity of who they are, where they come from, what their legacy is, why they're Muslim, what culture they have. This is very important. This happens through social activities, through social gatherings and picnics and going to different places and being around people that are similar to you. You have to take care of that as a parent. Masajid, we provide the togetherness. You see this outside of COVID when people are standing one side by side and there's unity and there's a sense of belonging and we all stand together and we remind ourselves that we're Muslim. Under the eyes of Allah we are equal. That's what the masajid bring forward. But the social identity and the cultural identity and the religious identity, it starts at home. It begins at home. I've seen this because I've taught at Islamic schools all over and I've dealt with youth. Those who don't have it at home, it's very hard for me to actually provide it for them in a masjid. I don't have the ability, I don't have the tools. They have to be told by their parents who they are and what to be proud of and what to feel strongly about. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده وبعد. My sixth point. Preparing the youth for leadership happens at home. Providing the training and the space to lead happens in institutions. The preparation to lead happens at home. That has to be something that the father and the mother prepare the youth for. Put enough confidence, enough skills, enough education in them, and enough sense of responsibility so that they're prepared to take on leadership roles, whatever they may be. Institutions provide the actual training and the space to lead. I'm getting the gray hairs have beaten finally the black hairs. I need to soon step down. This is actually how I see things, just so you understand. Within maybe a decade, I have to step down. If within a decade we haven't prepared people to stand in this spot and speak and articulate about Islam clearly from a younger generation, we have failed. We have failed them. Why? Because all you have to do is read Islamic history. The Prophet ﷺ passed away, leaving Usama, the son of Zayd ibn Haritha, on the head of an army. He was 16, 17 years old. This actually was well designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we learned the story. Because he passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam, leaving a teenager to lead an army. And after he passed away, some of the Sahaba asked the question, well, now that you really think Usama should be leading? I mean, look at the number of people that you have that are much more experienced, or older, have more. Abu Bakr, of course, taught us a lesson. قال ما كنت لأحل عقدة عقدها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. You think I'll change something he put sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do any of you? That's what Abu Bakr got upset. Do any of you think that I would change something that he put in action, alayhi salatu? This army is going to march, and it's going to march behind Usama, and it did. It's as if from the grave, alayhi salatu wasalam, he taught us what we're going to be doing. From the grave, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's how it's going to happen. And then go to history. Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i, 15, 16, they were giving fatwa and teaching. How did they do that? All geniuses, or was there very good preparation? Or there's very good preparation and investment into this age group to prepare them so they can lead. That's how you change the world. This is our job. It starts at home and it's continued here. Where training and spaces for them to actually do that happens. When I look around me, I don't see that age group. It breaks my heart, but that's how it is. My final point that I'll end the khutbah with. Broken families and broken homes are the number one cause of children falling into crime, drugs, leaving their education. This is actually, the scientific research around this is no longer debatable. Children who come from broken families are more likely to have mental health issues, more likely to go to jail, more likely to not finish their education, more likely to have a broken home themselves when they get married later on, if they ever do. The responsibility of the parents to make sure that your home is taken care of. As a husband, as a wife, making sure that the relationship that you have with your spouse is your responsibility. The institution's responsibility is to help keep families stronger. Provide whatever is needed to keep families stronger, to celebrate families, and to offer them whatever they need to stay strong. But that actual responsibility of making sure that this family stays a family is the responsibility of the parents. This is important. This is very, very important. I cannot emphasize this point enough. You want strong youth? You want a strong coming generation? You have to make sure they come from strong homes. So as a parent, your priorities have to be clear of who it is that you're taking care of and who it is you're sacrificing for and what it is that you're sacrificing. I'm not saying anyone should stay in an abusive relationship, just so that's clear. That's not what I'm saying here. But we need to make sure that our homes are well taken care of, are safe places for our children to actually grow normally. And then in the masajid, we celebrate the strength of these families. We offer programming that keeps families strong so they can continue moving forward with that. Those are my 7 points. So that the heartbreaking story of Nuh alayhi salam does not happen again. It has happened again, and again, and again, and again, and again. It continues to happen every day. If you're isolated and you don't see it, you're lucky. I see it every day. I'm looking, and this is me just sounding the alarm really hard. I don't have all the solutions. Even the points I gave you today may not solve the problem, but I'm at least sounding the alarm for you. We have to get our act together in order for us to make sure that the next generation is not isolated. Don't grow up outside of what the beauty of this deen is and the social aspect of this deen, the togetherness and the jama'ah of the deen. If you want to make sure that that doesn't happen, then we have to take some very clear steps moving forward. The khutbah is obviously recorded, it's online. I'm not going to repeat the points. Listen to them again if you need to. Figure out where your responsibility falls, what you need to do. Figure out what you need to hold me accountable to do so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen again. I hope that was a benefit. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَنَا بِأَمْرٍ عَظِيمٍ فَقَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وارض اللهم عن زوجاته أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر المحجلين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم فرج هموم المهمومين ونفس كروب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين واحقن دماءنا ودماء المسلمين وارفع الظلم عن المظلومين وعاف مبتلانا ومبتلى المسلمين واشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين وارحم أمواتنا وأموات المسلمين. اللهم رد المسلمين أجمعين شبابا وشيبا إلى دينك ردا جميلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
دائما أبدا لا إله إلا الله. استووا واعتدلوا استقيموا اختلفوا ثم الأول في الأول صلوا صلاة مودع. استووا ثابكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. وقال اركبوا فيها بسم الله مجريها ومرساها إن ربي لغفور رحيم. وهي تجري بهم في موج كالجبال ونادى نوح ابنه وكان في معزل يا بني اركب معنا ولا تكن مع الكافرين. قال سآوي إلى جبل يعصمني من الماء. قال لا عاصم اليوم من أمر الله إلا من رحم. وحال بينهما الموج فكان من المغرقين. وقيل يا أرض ابلعي ماءك ويا سماء أقلعي. وغيض الماء وقضي الأمر واستوت على الجودي. وقيل بعدا للقوم الظالمين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله. استغفر.